Hello, friends. Um, Here we go. So, my presentation is, or my project, I should say, is on the cultural impacts of my Immortal. Um, this will all make sense in due time. Up over in this corner, here we have Good Charlotte. We have some Hot Topic, Hot Cash, and then you probably can't see who this is, but this is Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance. Property of Ebony, Preps Don't Touch. All will make sense, I promise. So, what the fuck is My Immortal? My Immortal is a fanfiction set in the Harry Potter universe that was published to fanfiction.net between 2006 and 2007. A lot of people be talking, and there has been a lot of debate if it's an actual piece of fanfiction or if people are just fucking around for shits and giggles. With a lot of people questioning if it's just meant to be another piece of troll media or troll fiction, or troll fic. The work spans 44 chapters and over 22,000 words, and has remained unfinished to this day in the year of our Lord, 2024. The author stopped publishing in 2007, and then in 2008, it wound up being deleted from fanfiction.net by site administrators out of the blue. But thankfully, a lot of fans have re-uploaded it since then. So, what is fan fiction, you might be asking? If you don't know, fan fiction is fan fiction. Fans who like popular IPs or intellectual properties like Harry Potter, Supernatural, Doctor Who, Sherlock, Super Wholock, if you will. They'll write their own stories that take place within these universes and then incorporate original characters that they make into these worlds that interact with the characters that already exist within. Oh boy. And then stories of official works, like the actual Harry Potter books, are considered canon. Fan works like My Immortal are considered fanon, accepted by the fans to be being as intrinsic to the story world as any aspect of the original or source text. And it includes variations and departures from the canon that are disseminated across the fan community. From Brunman Thomas. So, who wrote My Immortal? Okay, so My Immortal was written by one Miss Tara Gillespie under the username XXX Bloody Wrists 666 XXX. It's been debated for a while if Ebony's real or not. A lot of people think it's just an internet troll. I disagree. But we'll get to there in a second. Tara often shouts out her best friend, Raven, through her author's notes that happen a lot throughout the fanfiction, as you will soon see. And Raven's username at the time was Bloody Tears 666. And throughout her author's notes, she would often shout out Raven for proofreading the fanfiction, and then yell at the preps for flame into story. At one point in time, towards the end of the fanfiction, Tara's account did get hacked by someone who was anonymous at the time, but they later came out to say, like, ooh, it was me, so it's not really anonymous now, but like at the time it was. So they published chapters 39 and 40 instead of Tara, and you can tell it was a different person because the writing style and the prose are completely different. Tara later got control of the account, and then so on and so forth. She got back on track for like 4 more chapters. This is an example of Tara's author's notes and her writing style. Author's note... Oh, period, thunder. How fitting, actually. Author's note, special fangz, get it, because I'm goffik. To my GF, ew, not in that way. Raven, Bloody Tear 666, for helping me with the story and spelling you rock. Justin, you're the love of my depressing life. You rock too. MCR ROX. Tara Gillespie, Chapter 1. So my thoughts. So personally, I think she was real. Throughout the entirety of the story, she has this really strong and consistent voice that comes through, especially through Ebony, and it's more than apparent that she took great care in the work that she was writing, even if she had like little to no respect for the IP and the canon itself. But just because of how because of how strictly she stuck to her own guns in terms of characterization, it's kind of apparent that she used Ebony, the main character, as a means of personal self-expression that she probably wasn't able to in real life. As I've said here, I'll get out of the way so you can read it. In her author's notes, you can clearly hear the voice of a young goth teen girl from the mid-2000s, from calling Raven her best friend, to thanking her for proofreading the fanfiction, to their public fight over a sweater and a My Chemical Romance poster. And then 3 chapters later, they're back to normal. Personally, that's like really heavy middle school behavior, and I wouldn't give a mid-2000s internet troll that much credit for creating a persona this elaborate. So, I think she was real. Before we get into anything else, though, who's who in My Immortal? We have our girl, Miss Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way, also known as Inobi, Agoji, Ebony, and multiple other variations, and also, like, by Terra in 2 chapters for some reason. She's 17. She's a witch, a 7th year at Hogwarts, and she's also a vampire. Fun fact, she sleeps in a black coffin with hot pink velvet interior. She's gothic and a Satanist. She hates this Gryffindor prep named Brittany, who's mentioned a lot for some reason, but she's not important enough to name here, but she shits on Brittany like constantly. She has a penchant for self-harm. She's Hot Topic's #1 fan. She loves My Chemical Romance, Good Charlotte, Evanescence, and she wishes she were related to Gerard Way because he's hot. She's a member of the band Bloody Gothic Rose 666, and as Taro mentioned frequently through her author's notes, Ebony is not a Mary Sue. And if you don't know who this is a very, very edited picture of Amy Lee from Evanescence. We'll get there. And by there, I mean here. So this... not bad. So this is the beginning of the first chapter of My Immortal. For those of you who don't want to read, this is Ebony's introduction. So, it goes. Hi, my name is Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way, and I have long ebony hair, or long ebony black hair. That's how I got my name. With purple streaks and red tips that reaches my mid-back, and icy blue eyes like limpid tears. Still don't know what limpid tears are. And a lot of people tell me I look like Amy Lee. Seen here. Author's note, if you don't know who she is, get the hell out of here. I'm not related to Gerard Way, but I wish I was because he's a major fucking hottie. Yeah. Real. I'm a vampire, but my teeth are straight and white. I have pale white skin. I'm also a witch, and I go to a magic school called Hogwarts in England, where I'm in the 7th year. I'm 17. I'm a goth, in case you couldn't tell, and I wear mostly black. I love Hot Topic, and I buy all my clothes from there. For example, today I was wearing a black corset with matching lace around it and a black leather miniskirt, pink fishnets, and black combat boots. I was wearing black lipstick, white foundation, black eyeliner, and red eyeshadow. I was walking outside Hogwarts. It was snowing and raining, so there was no sun, which I was very happy about. A lot of preps stared at me. I put up my middle finger at them. Ebony, Chapter 1. Next we have Draco Malfoy, who is somehow the least changed from his Harry Potter counterpart. He's also a 7th year. He's still a Slytherin. He is described on the My Immortal wiki as shy, sensitive, and bisexual. He dated Vampire before Ebony, more on Vampire in a second, and he even has a vampire heart tattoo on his arm. He's goth and a Satanist by the heavy black eyeliner. He's a fan of My Chemical Romance, Good Charlotte, Green Day, Simple Plan, and Linkin Park. Don't come at me for the spelling. I quoted those directly from Miss Tara Gillespie herself. And Draco is also a member of Bloody Gothic Rose 666. And then for some reason in Chapter 10, he calls Ebony a poser muggle bitch, which I laughed about. Oh boy. Vampire Potter. Formerly known as Harry Potter, he's almost entirely different from his counterpart. It's never explicitly stated what year he is, but I'm gonna guess he's also 7th year because everyone else is a 7th year. He's also bisexual and dated Draco. Looks exactly like Joe Madden. Spiky black hair with red streaks, black eyeliner, black lipstick. The scar has been changed by Diablo from a lightning bolt into a pentagram, as seen here. Ooh, come on, thank you. He's somehow clairvoyant and sees Draco being held in bondage by Voldemort. We'll get there. And then he's also a member of Ebony's band. And now we have Bloody Mary Smith, born Hermione Granger. She's also a vampire, but was kidnapped at birth. Her mother was a witch and was killed by Voldemort. Her dad was a vampire, but killed himself out of depression. She murders Willow for some reason and calls it kawaii, which means she somehow speaks Japanese. We'll get to Willow, though. She switched houses from Gryffindor to Slytherin. She's also a member of the band. She's dating Navel, or as many will know him as Neville, but he's really not important, so we're not going to talk about him here. And she had a time toner at one point. Diablo Weasley. Oh, bitch. He's the brother of Darkness, Crabbe, and Goyle. They're all Gothic. I don't know when Darkness was mentioned, or Crabbe or Goyle. Their father was a vampire. He sexually assaulted the brothers in their youth and killed himself soon after. To be completely honest, I don't know where in the fanfiction this was mentioned. It was in the wiki. He's also bisexual. Not that anyone should be surprised by that. He's dating Willow, and he's the one who turned Vampire Scar into a pentagram. And this is directly from the My Immortal wiki. No discernible personality. He literally has 2 lines in the entire 44 chapters of this fanfiction. This is Dumbledore. Not to be confused with Albus Dumbledore, this is Albert Dumbledore. He's the principal of Hogwarts and becomes Gothic to help Ebony, but she dislikes that because she calls him a poser. When he has a headache, he becomes verbally abusive. We'll have evidence of that later. And he has a robe that says Avril Lavigne on the back for some reason. And then this last point right here. You see, in Nobby, Dumbledore said, watching the two of us watching the flame. To see what is in the flames, haha, you reviewers flames, get it? You must find yourself first, okay? Here you can see another brilliantly written author's note from Tara, calling out the reviewers for flaming the story. Voldemort. In his youth, called himself Satan. Gotta love it. But he was also referred to in the story as Tom Bombadil, Tom Anderson, and Stan. He was in a band with the Marauders for some reason because they all were at school together, called X Black X Tier X. Whatever. He becomes the Bark Lord when Hedwig, who's not an owl now, dumped him, and which made him become a prep in the process. He's a master of disguise, as you'll see. He speaks in a faux, archaic English accent. He still wants Vampire dead. He's willing to threaten to sexually assault Draco to get Ebony to comply. And abracadabra. That will make sense when we get to the story itself. Willow. This is Tara's insert for Raven. She speaks Japanese. Konnichiwa kawaii are frequently mentioned by Willow. Dating Diablo. In Tara's author's notes, she publicly has beef with Raven because of a sweater and a My Chemical Romance poster. And because of that, Tara decided to have Willow expelled for skipping math class and then failing every other class. And then it was later revealed that Bloody Mary murdered Willow, and then Lupin did it with her corpse because he's a necrophiliac. Yeah. But Willow, don't worry, she inexplicably comes back to life like 2 chapters later like nothing happened. So, there's that. These are other people that you should probably know before we get into the actual story itself. We have Hagrid, not Hagrid, who is now a teenager, a Satanist, and of course has a crush on Ebony because that's kind of par for the course at this point. And he's also a member of the band. We have Professor Sinister / Trifoli, Professors Trelawney and Sinistra combine into one. They have an addiction to Voldemort serum, which is Ebony's take on Veritas serum or the Truth serum. We have Snape and Lupin, or Snap and Lupin. They're gay lovers. Ooh, that was a flash of lightning. Period. They enjoy doing it in the open, quote unquote. They're still professors, and they're death dealers, and for some reason they're now pedophiles. Yay! And then we have Morty McFly. It's exactly who you think it is, only gothic. So, now we got to get into the good part. TLDR of My Immortal. So My Immortal begins with Ebony going on and on about how she wants to be with Draco and bang Draco. And then one day he invites her to a Good Charlotte concert in Hogsmeade. And she's like, oh my god, let's go. He said, no, not like that. She'd be like, okay, whatever. So they go. Draco drives his dad, Lucian's black flying Mercedes-Benz, to the concert in Hogsmeade. Afterwards, instead of going back to Hogwarts like they're supposed to, they go to the Forbidden Forest and get it on, quote unquote. They are, of course, caught by Dumbledore, who swears at them, but only because he, quote, had a headache. Later, after seeing a tattoo of vampire and a heart on Draco's arm, Ebony confronts Vampire in front of everybody in Severus Snape, Snap, Snoop, Snape, Snoop's class. Those are all the variations of his name that are throughout the fanfiction, including Draco, who is somehow naked, about their history together, where it comes out that Vampire and Draco at some point dated, and Ebony for some reason feels betrayed by that, even though she is also bisexual and has a preference towards, quote, sensitive bi guys. But whatever, she runs into the Forbidden Forest because she's heartbroken. While she's there, she's approached by Voldemort. He gives her a gun, for some reason, in order for her to kill Vampire, and threatens that he will kill Draco if she doesn't, but of course she refuses. Later, Draco finds out about her little soiree with Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest, and slits his own wrists and commits suicide. But don't worry, he can't actually die, because he's a vampire, and the only way vampires can die is with a cross or a stake. And she purposefully spells it out like cross like that. And an author's note, Tara explicitly states, I'm not writing that out. Period. Subsequently, Vampire has a vision of Draco being held in bondage by Voldemort. So, of course, the gang goes on a rescue mission, they save the day, whatever. And then they go to celebrate. They go to a My Chemical Romance concert in Hogsmeade. Lo and behold, MCR is revealed to be Voldemort and his death dealers, who proclaim that they want to kill Ebony and Draco because she failed to kill Vampire. Oh boy. They're saved by Dumbledore, who gave himself his gothic makeover, and Ebony calls him a poser, and all of her friends openly dislike him for being a poser. How fun. Then, while all this is going on, Lucian and Sirius Black are for some reason shot by a gun-toting black guy, who is probably meant to be the vampire Blade. I don't know, it's only mentioned once, and people speculate that's supposed to be Blade. She never explains who or why, so we'll go with it. But back to Ebony, though. She's begun having strange visions, so she goes to Professor Chivalry and she's like, girl, what the fuck is going on? So after she gazes into a black crystal ball, Professor Sinister tells Ebony that she has to use a pensive to travel back in time and prevent Voldemort from becoming the Dark Lord. So, in order to do so, she has to meet him while he's young and seduce him, while at the same time getting a cure for their addiction. While she's back in time, Ebony meets Voldemort, who calls himself Satan at this time, and they talk about bands, and he tells her how he's in a band with James, Samara Potter, Snape, Sirius, who went by Hades at the time, and Lucian, called X Black X Tier X. Did I forget an X in there? Whatever. The two continue to get to know each other more, they go on a date, and somehow Ebony becomes the lead singer of the band. I don't question it. Later, Ebony comes into contact with Marty McFly, who gives her a black DeLorean time machine that also turns into an iPod, which allows her to return to the present. But because of the time that she and Satan have spent together, she finds herself unable to kill him, so she decides to bring Satan forward in time with her, hoping to prevent his change entirely into the Dark Lord. She fails. Like, really, really badly. And when they arrive in the present, Satan still becomes Voldemort, which leads to what would be a final confrontation in the Great Hall of Hogwarts. During so, Snape threatens to sexually assault Draco if Evan doesn't stab Vampire. Don't know why they're still on about this. And the final chapter, chapter 44, ends in a shootout, because that's what she calls duels. She calls them shootouts. I'm not going to question it, but a shootout between Snape and Draco. And then, during that fight, Snape summons Voldemort to the Great Hall. And then Ebony fires an abracadabra, not Avada Kedavra, abracadabra at him. This is where the story leaves us at the end of chapter 44. As Tara never updated my Immortal after this point, but it's been widely agreed upon that this is where the story was meant to end. Some standout passages for your viewing and perhaps listening pleasure. Anyway, I started crying tears of blood, and then I slit both of my wrists. They got all over my clothes, so I took them off and jumped into the bath, angrily while I put on a Linkin Park song at full volume. I grabbed a steak, and almost stuck it into my heart to commit suicide. I was so fucking depressed. I got out of the bathtub and put on a black low-cut dress with lace all over it. Sandly. I put on black high heels with pink metal stuff on the ends and 6 pairs of skull earrings. I couldn't fucking believe it. Then I looked out the window and screamed. Snap was spying on me, and he was taking a videotape of me, and Lupin was masticating to it. They were sitting on their broomsticks. Ebony in chapter 11. He had a sexy English accent. He looked exactly like Joe Madden. He was so sexy that my body went all hot when I saw him. Kind of like an erection, only I'm a girl, so I don't get one, you sicko. That's Ebony meeting Vampire for the first time in chapter 6. Okay. Oh boy. On the night of the concert, I put on my black lace-up boots with high heels. Underneath them were ripped red fishnets. I put on a black leather mini dress with all this corset stuff on the back and the front. I put on matching fishnets on my arms. I straightened my hair and made it look all spiky. I felt a little depressed then, so I slit one of my wrists. I read a depressing book while I waited for it to stop bleeding, and I listened to some Cheesy or Good Charlotte. I painted my nails black and put on tons of black eyeliner. Then I put on some black lipstick. I didn't put on foundation because I was pale anyway. I drank some human blood, so I was ready to go to the concert. Ebony in chapter 3. I have telekinesis. Voldemort, chapter 9. Konnichiwa, bitch. Willow, chapter 42. Anyway, I was in the school nurse's office now, recovering from my slit wrists. Snape and Lupin and Hagrid were there too. They were going to St. Mango's after they recovered because they were pedophiles. And you can't have those fucking pervs teaching in a school with lots of hot girls. Dumbledore had constipated the video camera they took of me naked. I put up my middle finger at them. Ebony, chapter 12. What the hell are you doing, you motherfuckers? Dumbledore, chapter 4. If you couldn't guess, this is when he breaks up Ebony and Draco when they're doing it in the Forbidden Forest. I was so mad and sad, I couldn't believe Draco for cheating on me. I began to cry against a tree where I did it with Draco. Then, all of a sudden, an horrible man with red eyes and no nose and everything started flying towards me on a broomstick. He didn't have a nose, basically like Voldemort in the movie, and he was wearing all black, but it was so obvious he wasn't gothic. It was Voldemort. Ebony being Voldemort in the Dark Forest. Chapter 9. Crookshanks! I shouted at him. Voldemort fell off his broom and started to scream. I felt bad for him, even though I'm a sadist, so I stopped. Voldemort gave me a gun. No, please! I begged. Also Ebony. Also chapter 9. I do, but Diablo changed it into a pentagram for me, and I always covered up with foundation, he said back. Anyway, my scar hurt and it turned back into the lightning bolt. Save me. Then I had a vision of what was happening to Draco. Voldemort has him in bondage. Vampire, chapter 12. So, I'll give you a second to decompress on that for a second. How are we feeling? Are we hydrated? Do we have a snack? Because now, right into the good shit. How do people react? So this is a quote from Addie Robertson, a writer for The Verge, where, as I pause for a beverage, she says, "In fact, My Immortal resonates with me more than I'd like. I laugh at it now, but my teenage iteration spent years picking the perfect depressing button at Hot Topic, writing more popular kids for their highlighted hair and Abercrombie & Fitch shirts, thinking myself a rebel for making Korn and Metallica logos in Rhino 3D. I wrote my own self-insert characters who wore all black vinyl and MC'd for rock bands in the dismal future. I spelled their names right every time, but it was the same fantasy and just as silly." Tangentially, you see this name here? This name right here? Little Miss Anobi clone, if you will. Amy Lee of Evanescence, the one who Ebony's design was based off of, has in fact read My Immortal, and Addie Robertson from this Addie Robertson mentioned it to her in an interview. If I could speak, holy shit. Amy Lee has this to say. "I read, I think, not quite half of it, but it did have me in tears. I was laughing really, really hard at one point just because of the nonsense. And then I started asking myself, is this real? I can't quite tell. I'm totally undecided. Is it sincere? I feel like it started maybe as sincere, but they got in on it and started playing it up for the haters. I can't tell. What do you think?" And then to wrap up this part, we have a quote from Abraham Reisman from Vulture. In 2006, however, readers of My Immortal didn't seem to mind the ambiguity in the sense talking about Tara's identity. We were reading it and going, "Is this for real?" recalled writer and longtime fanfiction reader Cindy Aleo. She didn't know if she was being trolled or not, and didn't much care. She remained glued to her screen, waiting for new chapters. There was such excitement for when it would update, it was like watching a train wreck. So, as you can get from these three quotes, people fucking liked it. Like, as much as, probably regular people flamed it in the comments, like, those who had, strong online presences at the time, like Cindy Aleo, who was a longtime reader of fanfiction and writes fanfiction, they fucking loved it. It was like a train wreck. It does kind of have that same energy as, like, watching, like, car accident videos on TikTok. Just, like, doom scrolling, watching car accident after car accident. You just can't look away. You know what I mean? And then we also have a quote from a user on fanfiction.net by the username of Stone Age Woman. She did actually a really, I'll link it in, the description or whatever, but she did, a really well thought out, personal essay, deep diving into My Immortal and its, implications. And she talks about how My Immortal tells the story of a woman whose sexuality is under siege by powerful male authority figures, specifically the wizards Dumbledore and Voldemort. While Ebony is constantly threatened by male wizards, she refuses to give up or engage in sexual activity, eventually finding ways of opposing the authority of male figures who try to repress her. She carves out a space for her own desires by using her sexuality as a weapon against those who seek to threaten it, and emerges triumphant at the end of the story. Which we can see quite literally when she has to go back in time and use her sexuality to stop Voldemort from becoming Voldemort. So how did the Harry Potter fandom react? Surprisingly or unsurprisingly, I couldn't really find much of anything as to the Potterheads reacting to My Immortal, whether everyone was who gives a shit or what. But this Harry Potter podcast I saw, they did an entire episode reacting and reading and whatever My Immortal. So I have a couple quotes from there. This one's from Christina Kahn, who says, "This is not a troll. 2 things. 1, I've seen writing like this. I've seen actual people who wanted to become actual authors who write exactly like this, with the immense of care and attention. And 2, I have been a teenage girl before, and while I don't fully understand the lengths to which these characters act, I could see something of myself in some of these character choices. My 15-year younger self. Then we have a quote from Brooke Matherly talking about how I don't think the writing style is too dissimilar for the age gap of the original 50 Shades of Grey when it was being posted online. Yeah, accounting for the supposed age of what I'm assuming is a late middle school girl versus a fully grown adult woman writing a Twilight fanfic, I don't think the writing style choices and gratuitous use of sex is completely the same between these two franchises. Because if you didn't know, the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy is quite literally Twilight fanfiction. It is Bella and Edward fanfiction. And then, if you've read the Mortal Instruments series, like City of Bones, whatever, the story of Jason Clary is Harry Potter fanfiction, and Cassandra Clare started out writing incest fanfiction about Ron and Ginny. Fun fact if you didn't know that. Then here's another quote from Brooke Matherly. Regarding the question of if it's parody or real, every last bit of this is stuff that makes you think, oh, of course it's there. It makes sense that it's there. It makes sense that our favorite movie is Corpse Bride. That was 100% right for the time period. The My Chemical Romance t-shirts, even the fact that you would go and specifically get a really big one to sleep in, it was 100% a thing. All this stuff is so perfectly fitted together with the actual way that it was, that it either has to be a masterful troll or it has to be someone who is honestly doing this. I fall back every time on someone who is honestly doing this because I know some people who would have done this, as do I. My sister did this, my best friend in middle school did this, I do this now. So, I agree with what Brooke is saying here. Like, from the descriptions that Tara makes, can't confuse them now. From the things she says, her descriptions, her choices, everything is so deliberate and so period accurate. There's no way that, like, any troll or anything, like any other person besides, like, a middle school girl really could have done this. Which brings us to about the conclusion now, or nearing the end, of what is the impact of My Immortal. There are a quote from Ariane Reisman from Vulture again. He talks about how there's still plenty of people from the fandom world who embrace My Immortal. Cindy Leo again mentions the kind of criticism the story got, because she's also quoted again. She talks about how it's a source of nostalgia for a different era of online fandom. Until 50 Shades blew up, fanfiction seemed like a bunch of nerds, not a bunch of moms. She's happy with fic being viewed as stuff like My Immortal rather than a bunch of middle-aged women who read Twilight and try to write sex scenes. Which is... oh, 50 Shades of Grey is. Let's be real here. This is a further quote. How about how My Immortal still inspires people to make creative works, including My Immortal the web series, which is a collection of 15 film episodes inspired by the infamous story. Basically, it's not like a word-for-word adaptation, but it's original content within the My Immortal realm, with characters and things that are true to source with content. And the most common comment that Brian McClellan, who created this series, got was, I can't believe I started to sympathize with Anobi, because their character names, all of the misspellings are brought into the series too, so Ebony will be called Anobi, Ebony, Agaji, the whole kit and caboodle. And basically it implies that there's still plenty of people making adaptations of the fanfiction, still reading the fanfiction, still enjoying the fanfiction. So it has like a very long, 16-year grip on the internet. Then we have a quote from Matilda Gregory from BuzzFeed. She talks about how fandom is important to her, and that began in the Harry Potter fandom. She read My Immortal when it was coming out, and now she can't reread it without being reminded of people that she used to know when she was pregnant with her daughter. who are her online fandom friends. Fandom friends she never met in person, sent her gifts when her daughter was born, and now they're still friends 13 years later. Fandom has gone to take up a truly shocking amount of my time. I've had to block Tumblr to get this written. People have literally given me writing jobs because I understand fandom. How she runs a popular literature night about fan fiction, and how she met her girlfriend through running it. Fandom is a huge, important part of her life, and it must have been the same to the author of my Immortal as well. So, here are my sources, formal bibliography, and then here's my photo credits for the little Who's Who bit that we did before. Everything, like, of course I read this fanfiction, listened to the fanfiction, the whole nine, went through the wiki page, got characteristics and the pictures from there. But yeah. As I scroll back to the first page here, as we finish up our thoughts, I really enjoy this fanfiction a lot. Like, this for me is like my Roman Empire, like that TikTok trend that went viral like months ago now. As someone who is queer identifying and was a childhood fan of Harry Potter, whose personal views no longer align with those of one Miss J.K. Rowling. This is my Harry Potter canon now. Just because it's so wrong, it's perfect. And I hope you get the same effect. I hope you have the same affection for it that I do, because when I tell you, I had so much fun putting this together. Like, I sat there, I made the heart myself, I did the background so it would match in the composition book, and the hot cache, I made everything myself here. Graphic design is my passion, if you didn't know. Not really, but I hope my love and my care for this fanfiction came through in my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed listening to me babble, listen to me ramble and blabber on about this for however fucking long this video was. 40 minutes, oh period. So thank you for watching, and yeah.